Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. This is what it used to look like when we were printing it. We're digital now. Let's see. This was 272 pages. Woohoo! Back in March, April 2007, right before the crash of when the economy went over the hill with the real estate market, residential real estate market. But Ron Bidnos, he's been on my board forever. He's been was at Marie Callender's, Johnny Rockets. Now he's building Bubaku burritos. Thanks, Ron. I know you're killing it out there and having fun down in Florida. So we appreciate the grace in the cover. And anyway, hope everybody listen. It's the end of the week. Weekend's upon us. Hope everybody's going to enjoy themselves. And remember, recharge your battery, positive mindset. And listen, some of us still work on the weekend. So if you're out there on a construction site, make sure that you're drinking lots of water because I'm out of Atlanta and it's sizzling hot down here. I mean, just hot, hot, hot. So we want you to stay hydrated. We don't want you getting headaches and all that good stuff. But hope everybody had a great week. And like I said, take the weekend to recharge your batteries and all that good stuff. On the sports front, not much going on except for the professional cross league in baseball and our Braves. We've got the best record in the MLB, and they just keep on winning. I think they crushed the White Sox last night. I think it was 9-0. But they're just on tear. And so hopefully they'll keep their winning ways and get back to the World Series and bring that championship trophy home again. But it's a long season. Anything can happen. And they just had the All-Star game in the beginning of the week, and now they're getting back to gameplay. And it's the dog days of summer, and anything can happen. So, with that said, got an awesome guest up in the Big Apple in New York City. Her name is Dr. Sarah Buchner, and she's the CEO and founder of Trunk Tools. And actually, she comes from a carpentry family and so forth. And with the labor shortage and all these different things that are making hindrances in construction, whether it's residential or commercial, it's a topic of ease. And also, she gets into AI and all that other stuff. So Sarah, say hello to our listeners out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk from the Big Apple.
Hello. I'm very excited to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. And, is it nice in New York? What's the weather like?
It's hot. It's hot. Yeah, I was like, when you talked about drinking more water, I was like, oh, he's so right. So, yes.
Yeah.
It's hot on the street. It's even more hot on the construction site. I watch those guys every day, and I'm just impressed how they survive.
Yeah. I was up in New York for a reception in May. Beautiful weather, no humidity. And the humidity normally hits here in June, but it really hasn't come in. But over the last week to 10 days, the humidity has come. I knew it was coming, and it's just sizzling hot. I got to cut my grass. I got to go up to my lake lot where I'm about to break ground. So I keep the HOA happy. I got to cut that grass. I'm not looking forward to it. And we're supposed to get some thunderstorms in here this afternoon. So hopefully, I won't get any, I won't lose the power. We won't lose this. So I'll keep our fingers crossed. So, but it's hot down here. That's why they call it Hot Atlanta. It's the LA of the South. And man, is it hot, So the way it's going to work, Sarah, is this. We do our episodes or recordings in 3 parts. You'll tell us your story, where you grew up, brothers, sisters, played any sports, where you went to school, and how you ended up at Trunk Tools. And then we'll talk about lessons learned over the last 3 years with the roller coaster that we've all been on. And then you'll leave one positive thought or phrase with our listeners. So with that said, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Thanks, David. I grew up in Austria, rural countryside, actually surrounded by farms that had to mostly shut down because of the European Union when it came in. And so a lot of people actually transitioned out of farming towards construction. It was like similar job, very labor intense, very hard on your body, but like real work. And my family was one of them. My dad was a carpenter, and given our just like socioeconomic status, it was fairly normal for the children to work with the family super early on. And so I've been in a workshop from, I don't know, like being a child on. And when I turned 12, my dad decided that it's time to, actually work. And so he took me out on the first construction site. not to visit, right? Like, but to actually work. So I started working pretty much full time when I was 12 years old in construction. So background is full on blue collar. I worked as a carpenter for about 8 years. Eventually became a foreman, became a super, and then switched to the GC side because I thought that's the better side of construction. Some lessons need to be learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was at GC for a while, and I worked my way up there, and eventually was running, large high-rise projects. It was in commercial mostly. And I loved it. I absolutely love construction. I love construction as a worker. I love construction as a manager. I just think it's fascinating that you go out every day and you make decisions, and these decisions build something like instantly with the time, right? As long as you're on site, like everything you decide is going to change like instantly. I also like and still like really like the environment that you have out there, right? Like people are honest, there's no bullshit. It's just like actually like, let's get work done, and there's a lot of pride. And until this day, like, if people don't ask the questions that you ask, usually I just say I'm a carpenter and I stop the conversation. I had some teachers in school that were like, "Hey, you're really smart. You should go to college," which was funny because nobody in my family has ever been to college. So I didn't even know what that looked like. I had no idea. But eventually I was like, okay, that seems to be the right move if everybody tells me to go to college. So I did a bunch of degrees on this side. Like, I just wanted to keep on working in construction. I really couldn't afford anything else anyways. And so it works in Europe a little bit easier than America. But I did an undergrad in engineering. I did 2 master's degrees in engineering. And then eventually I did a PhD. So I kind of like fell from one degree to the other while I kept working full time in construction. And my PhD was originally, I was like, oh, I'm going to do civil engineering again. And then I was kind of like dragged a little bit more on the software side of things. So my PhD ended up being a mix between data science, computer science, and civil engineering. So what we call nowadays construction tech. And I did the PhD while I worked full time on a mega project. We had like 600 guys on the job. And one of these construction workers on my job died, which I'm sure some of the listeners have experienced. It was a fundamentally impactful event in my career and in everybody's career on that job site. And I just decided I don't want to see more of that happening. And given that I was wrapping up this PhD and understood software, I was like, hey, there's stuff we can do right now with software that protects people from dying on site, that protects, people from like rework. And like, there's just so many things that we can do with a little piece of software. And so that was really the pivotal point in my career where I was like, okay, I want to change something and I want to change it now. So I switched over from construction to construction software. I built several different apps and software products in Europe that, health and safety app, productivity apps, lean apps, you name it. And I liked it. I mean, I always miss site. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I miss being out there and actually like doing the work. But I just felt I had the chance to be actually impactful to, way more people than just running like one construction project. And yeah, I thought that was all going well. And then I don't know. There's like a lot that you can argue for and against the European Union, but like one that is very clear, and you see it in data. It's just not a perfect environment for startups. And so the more I learned about the world, but the more I talked to, fancy investors, the more they told me about the promised land, Silicon Valley. And then I was like, okay, how do I get into the promised land? And how do I get into, the land of the free? I really just wanted to go to America. And so the easiest way for me was to get into business school. So I ended up at Stanford Business School because I needed a visa to get into the country. I needed a network. And yeah, at my time at Stanford, I mean, obviously it's an incredible school, right? Like you are in the heart of Silicon Valley. Everything seems possible. And everybody was looking at me a little bit weird, honestly. It was like, what the heck? You're a carpenter? Are you blue collar? Like, what are you doing here? And I just kept path. And I was like, I don't care what you guys think. Like, I want to stay in construction. That's what I'm doing. And that's where I'm good at. And I want to build software for these, for my buddies out there, for the men and women that work every day, as you mentioned before, under like, 100 degrees and humidity, that actually build something. And I love this until this day when people kind of look down on construction. And then I talk to them and I was like, can you look up for a second? And they look up and I'm like, what do you see? And they're like, I don't know, a ceiling, like a lamp. And I was like, who do you think built this there? Right? Or like right now, right? Like we talked about the heat. I was like, do you feel cold right now? They're like, yeah, I have an air conditioner. I was like, who built your air conditioner? And I'm really trying to, I have little impact with that, but I'm trying people to understand that the comfort that they have every single day is because somebody worked out there really, really hard to make that happen. And so to wrap this up, yeah, my time at Stanford, I did a lot of research. I was like, what are the big issues right now in construction? And I interviewed about 50 of the top 100 construction CEOs in the United States. The Bechtel, the Turners, the Gilbanes of the world. And I asked all of these, millionaires and billionaires, I was like, what's your biggest problem in your company right now? And almost every single one talked about the labor shortage. It was mind blowing to me, right? Like being a blue collar worker myself, I was like, okay, that's interesting that the big problem of the big guy is still like me and my friends out there. And so when we think about the labor shortage, there's really only like three solutions. You can put robots out there, automate everything, which is great, but it's probably going to take 10, 20, if not more years to actually have an impact on the day to day. And then the only two short-term solutions are to get more people in construction or to kind of like get more out of the existing workforce. And so we've tried both and ended up realizing that getting more people in construction is, again, a very long process, right? We need to start at high school. We need like politics to come in. We need the socioeconomic scene to change a little bit. And so the only thing that we found that you can do right now to help this industry is really to increase productivity within existing workforces and construction sites. And when we did more data, like more research in there, we just realized that incentives are not aligned on construction. There's, the fancy homeowner and the banks that like are trying to build something great and put a name on the tower. And then there is like, there's a GC that is trying to figure it out. And then there's tens of thousands of subs. And then eventually you go down to the workforce and you realize that these people live paycheck by paycheck. 78% of blue collar workers live paycheck by paycheck. There's no real chance for them to make more money if they want to, at least not legally, right? And there's just like a million problems, and they're not really incentivized if they do something right or if they work harder, if they do better. And so what we decided is to build pretty much an incentive software. And what that means is we want to align incentives all throughout the project, literally from the owner to the GC to the sub down to the field. And the way we do this is by profit sharing. So an easy example is our software tells the crew of steel workers, hey guys, if you can finish that work by Thursday instead of Friday, all of you together, stay safe, like in the same quality. But if you actually hit that deadline, every single one of you gets $100 more. And then they go out, they finish on time because they like motivated to actually, do their best job, which I think they're motivated in general, but it's just an additional incentive to actually provide for their families. They finish by Thursday, they instantly get the $100 paid out on these debit cards. So every worker has their own debit card. There's no cash, no Starbucks gift cards or whatever to do. It's just like good old cash in a card. And so they are happy, and the construction company can stay on schedule and can actually like get more out of the crews without hurting them, without making them feel bad. It motivates the workforce. It gives them a little bit extra every single day to provide for their families, and helps construction companies stay on time and schedule.
Interesting. I come from a construction family. My family's been in demolition, steel recycling since 1888. So just like
I
you,
love demolition. It's my favorite.
yeah. So our company, family's company is called Pollock Steel. It's outside of Philadelphia, and just like you, I grew up down in the scrapyard, playing in the trains and all that. And back in the day, not to be anything against women, but all the grandsons, when you turn 16, you got your driver's license, you had to get and go to the scrapyard or be there by 7 o'clock. My super was my Uncle Frank, and man, he was one mean SOB. And if you were 1 second late, you were a dead man. So but I grew up with that mentality of hard work. I always worked early and did all these little things. And then I'm now, I'm a publisher. I'm still a constructor. I build this every day.
Yeah.
So instead of driving around and going, hey, look at that, I built that. When my magazine comes out, I'm like, yeah, I built that. I used to do it with paper, ink, and all those materials, but now I do it digitally, with digital content and software and all that stuff. But I'm still a builder. So every month
Yeah.
I put the issue out, I'm proud of it. And then I start over and I'm working on another project. Like right now I'm proofing mode in my production cycle to get my issue posted here, hopefully, after the weekend here, and it'll go out. But there's nothing like being proud. But with so many people that are involved in there, from, like I'm upper management, to all the people that help me, my editor, my artist, my fulfillment person, the software guys that we deal with. And, it, even though you're up top, you can't get anything done without the subs. They're your
Yeah.
bread and butter. And,
Yeah.
my whole thing is like when I was in junior high school, we had shop class. In the States, they've taken a lot of that out of there. So I've been on this rampage over the last 18 months, maybe 2 years, and trying to go into the high schools to get people to think about going into construction, being an HVAC tech, going an electrician, going to construction management. When they have the firemen and the policemen come in, I'll offer to say, hey, I'm a publisher, but I'm a construction, and here are all these opportunities. And just because you're blue collar doesn't mean you can't make big money. Let me tell you, I know a lot of plumbers that are millionaires. Okay.
Yep.
Write their ticket.
It's if you're a plumber after 3 years, at least in some states in this country, you make more money than a McKinsey associate.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. It's like, but then I say that to some of these fancy consultants, right? They're like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, do you know what we really need in this country right now? We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need HVAC people, we need every single person that can build something.
Yeah. My son, he always was working with his hands. He was flipping bikes and cars. He worked in the local garage, and he wanted to be first he wanted to be an auto tech. I said, look, you got to have your own shop to make money. You're not going to make money working for a dealer. He wanted to be a motorcycle tech. I said, you got to be a technician in a state that rides all year long. Or you're going to be kind of saddled with, what am I going to do during the slow season? And then he decided to go to aviation school with a 2-year program and get his A&P license, which is airframe and powertrain. And now he's working for Boeing, and he's working on 787s, and he's only 23 and he's making big bucks. And he could probably stay there. He's just started flying lessons. We were watching him this morning take off on the app, watch him take
Oh,
off,
cool.
do some circles, and he's getting up there about to solo. And with his pilot's license and A&P, he's worth so much more money. And
Yeah.
but I laugh every day, when I look at him. But people just look, some people, the kids today, they just like, oh, blue collar, you're in construction or you're in facilities, or what is, oh, I can't do that. And but all of his friends went to 4-year schools and got these degrees that are worth nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
And
And then student debt.
and student debt. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, his 2-year program, and it took him about a year. You got to take 5 tests. It's like taking the bar, your MedCats, to get your medical license. And it's intense stuff. I looked some of his textbooks. I mean, you learn physics, avionics. You learn everything you need to know. But the cool thing is, like, he's certified to work on any aircraft engine that goes into an F-16 or a train or a boiler in a healthcare facility. So he could have kind of picked his thing, but he went to the OEM phase, and he worked in the factory for years as a contractor, and now he's on the flight line. Some nights he'll be in the cockpit, some nights he'll be in the wheel well, but he fixes all the 787s that are either come out of the plant for delivery, and then if they come back and need some tweaking and so forth. So every day is it's kind of the same, but it's different because there's all the different airlines that use them. A lot of European airlines fly that 787, and
It's interesting that you say that, right? Because we started this Tractos very much in construction, right? Like that's my background, that's most of our team's background. And then we got pulled from manufacturing. So we now have the first manufacturing customers because they have a similar issue, right? Labor shortage is huge. The people like in manufacturing, even more than in construction, it's so repetitive, right? So like the real question is, how do you make this repetitive job a little bit more enjoyable, right? How do you keep people entertained? So what we do with our software is we make different challenges, different safety goals, different things every single day automatically, again, driven by AI and LLMs. And with doing that, like the people turn their daily repetitive job almost into like a computer game, right? It's like, oh, if I do this, I get 10 more dollars. If I do that, I get $50. And so it makes the day-to-day way more enjoyable. And so we are now live in manufacturing as well.
But I had those exact questions. I posed them. I was like, look, if you want to work with your hands and you want to be a skilled laborer, my advice is be a plumber. And the reason why I said that was like everybody needs water. Okay, you got to cook with it. You got to take showers with it. It just has so many applications, and a lot of plumbers don't have siblings that they can give their firms to, and they just go out of business. And now we're just short again. So I told them, look, you become an apprentice. We'll find some guy that doesn't have any kids. You become an apprentice, and then we'll buy his company out, and you can write your ticket, and then you can have it. My HVAC tech, his parents, we had I had one of the dampers motors went out on one of our, and it was cutting off the airflow. So my HVAC tech, he was an ex-police, he was retired officer here locally, started his HVAC company. Got certified, and now his son's he's probably about 30 years old. They just got another truck. They just hired 2 more technicians, so they're growing. But I said, look at Alex. He's going to take over his dad's business. He's learned from, and he works his tail off. And soon he'll, his dad's going to retire, and his mom, and he'll be taking it over. And you could do the same thing. HVAC. I pitched them all. I said I didn't push them in one direction, but I pushed plumber just because water is such an issue, whether it's commercial or residential. It's it's security and the fire sprinkler. It's just guys applications everywhere that I thought.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the data for this, right? Like actually the most sought after like trade right now in construction is electricians, just from also like because everybody needs electricity, right? Like to your point, that's where the labor shortage is the biggest. We see a lot of it in solar, because again, like solar is a newer trade, right? It's really hard even, like there's no solar person that has worked in solar for 50 years because there was no solar. And it's like growing exponentially, especially with like government funding and so coming in. So it's interesting. It's not so like, but on the other hand, like the hard trade, like steel, concrete, carpentry, it's the same thing. So when I talked to somebody who's a little bit younger, can she still like choose their career, and was like, whatever makes you most happy. Like we have labor shortage in every single trade, in almost every single state, right? And it's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, data shows, I think like in 2023, we need like 546,000 additional workers based on ABC. Yeah, we know that 40%, like ENR just recently posted that 40% of existing craft workers are retiring within the next 5 years. 40%. And we already have a lack of 546,000 people. So whatever you want to do in construction, there will be a job for you as long as you are on time, stay safe, and are a little bit open-minded to learning.
That was one of the biggest thing is when we went, looking at the school locally, they have about 20 schools around the country. It's called Aviation Institute of Maintenance, or AIM. And they have about 600,000 maintenance guys that work on all these planes. And you can't leave a plane just sit on the tarmac. It's got to be maintained. And they said over the next couple of years, I mean, half the force is going to retire, and they are short. So a lot of his friends went to become pilots. And Middle Tennessee State is a big pilot school. So he wasn't sure if he made the right decision, but his first day that he was in class, one of his buds up at Middle Tennessee texted him and said, "Hey man, our professor just said, hey, we don't need more pilots. We need technicians. So if you want to make or maintenance guys. So if you want to make the switch, now the time's to do it, because when the planes are grounded on the ground, you ain't flying, but the maintenance guy is still working. So he's got job security." And he called me, goes, "Hey, I was worried that I made the wrong decision, that I should have become a pilot. And but I'm so glad I went this route." And the other thing was that, it was only a 2-year program. It wasn't, 4. And Boeing, listen, they treat their employees gross. So they're paying for his flying license. If you wanted to go to school, they're paying. I mean, they treat their employees like gold. And the other thing is, the safety factor. We did the family day back in over last October, and the facility's immaculate. They've got signs up there how many days they haven't had a, an accident, or someone sliced
Yeah.
their or whatever. And but they're so about safety, and everything is signed off on, on anything you do, because you're dealing with people that, are flying, something could happen. We don't want any of that stuff to happen. And talking about electricity, that's avionics in aviation.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things he's like, oh, I don't want to deal with electric, blah, 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 he wanted all that. But now he's like, ooh, avionics is the best. So,
Yeah.
after
And
you
think about it, I think about it more also from an automation perspective, right? Given that like we use a lot of artificial intelligence in our product, we are completely cutting edge, right? We have the computer scientists out of Stanford and Harvard and everything. And when I look at what is possible already today and how much more is possible today than there was like a year ago, the curve is steep. And so when I think about like pilot versus the technician on the plane, I like 100% would become the technician because you cannot automate that job. Can you autopilot? We already have that, right? And so like, will this event, I mean, I don't think we'll have planes anytime soon that fly by themselves, but it's easier and easier, right? But actually the person that's going to come fix your AC at home, or the person that's going to pour in concrete, there's not even like any robotics company in the world thinking about doing that, because it's so hard to build. It's so hard to do a lot of these jobs by robots that I'm just not worried. So all this stuff with AI and everybody freaking out right now, it's like, am I going to lose my job? It's like, if you're on a construction site, you're pretty safe.
Yeah. I went digital. August 21 was my last issue that I published. And I went digital, and I thought I knew everything. And over this last year, I took a 12-week boot camp on digital marketing. Thought I knew everything. I didn't. I learned about autoresponders, funnels, and all this stuff. And then I took a 10-week course just on AI, learn ChatGPT, Mind Journey, clipping, all this different stuff that I can apply to my business, or, teach other people how to do it. Now I'm in this AI class, learning, TikTok and the, business accounts and all, but it's just mind blowing. But the guy who's teaching me, he had, a low credit. He was living pay petri. He's a young guy. He's made like probably, I don't know, 8 figures. I mean, the guy's just amazing. But the thing that he said, he goes, look, everything you learn in this course, by the time it's done, it's going to be
It's
outdated.
all, yes.
Because everything's working at warp speed, but you'll have the foundation. So when the new software comes out and the way it's working, you'll know how to manipulate it. It's push button 101, basically. And I'm going through it. Listen, I'm an old dog, and so, but you can teach an old dog new tricks. And I just went in and with it going, okay, I understand a lot of this because I'm a digital magazine as it was, and everything else, but there's so much stuff that is going on. And with AI, in construction, if you're putting in, in a high rise, if you're putting in the HVAC ducts and you want them to be completely straight, robots, someone's got to build that robot. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
not,
that's hard.
and it's not the chicken before the egg. It's definitely the chicken. You got to have the chicken before you lay the egg. So, here, if you want to do it with AI and robots, yeah, it'll be perfect. Can a human do it? Yeah, but it might be a little off floor to floor. You don't know, but it's still straight. It's not going to make that much of a difference. But the genie's out of the bottle with AI. They're not going to get it back. The question is, AI, it's basically a baby, and then you train it how you're going to use it. I mean, basically, and I tell people, I say, look, when we have, like, I had a couple of weeks ago, I had a person on, I go, remember this date. I want you to call me in 5 years and tell me what construction looks like. And then, you'll see. I think it's, will restaurants look the same? Probably not. Will retail stores look the same? Yeah, but it's going to all be done so much easier, because you want to have all of these little hindrances and change orders and this and that, because AI can make things so much easier. Just like Zoom, instead of having to drive 2 hours to look at something for 10 minutes, you can do FaceTime. You can pick and choose where you want to go, where you really need to be in person and look at that stuff. And I remember when I was growing up working, man, we didn't have any of this, so, you kind of had to, figure it out in yourself, and, hopefully everything worked. But it's just amazing technology, how it's incorporated. And but there's nothing wrong with learning a new skill as you go into the future. And I think it's very, very exciting. And once again, will drywall be put up by robots? Maybe, I don't know, but someone's got to get that off the truck. Someone's got to put it.
That's the point, right? When I was like, if you ask me what a construction site's going to look like in 5 years, I don't think it's going to look much different. I
No.
think the site itself, again, as you just said, like drywall, maybe actually drywall was one of the few things that's so repetitive, at least on a flat surface, that might, get automated at some point. But there's so much more in construction that is so small, that is not repetitive, that really just needs a human on it. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think what's going to change is the management behind it. It's like, like the documentation, the access to the right docs at the right time. There's a lot of stuff, and we're working on some stuff that I can't really talk about yet, but there's a lot of these things that I think we can do with AI that has nothing to do with taking the laborer off the construction side. We need these people, and we've seen this in agriculture, which I think, so again, we're working with agriculture right now as well. It's very interesting because agriculture is actually way more repetitive than construction, right? You have huge strawberry fields and huge salad fields. And when it comes, for example, to strawberries, there was like 20 companies out there that's trying to pick strawberry with a robot. And it's so hard because the tactility of like just grabbing the strawberry, not too hard, not too little, right? There's like just so much finesse in like how this is done that it's really hard. And we have that in construction 10x. Right, like you screw in, you feel when you screw if the screw is in or not, right? And like, yes, there is some automation for that, but you still need to know where you screw, where the screw is. Like, it's just, I'm not worried about that. And that's not the plan. I think at least not the plan from our company to actually like, get rid of any workers out there. The plan from us is to like make these people more happy and to get the processes straight, because a lot of the waste in construction is because the people don't know what to do. They have to do rework, like between 10 to 20% of every construction site is rework cost. This is complete waste. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for the people. It's not good for the economy. Like nobody wins. And it's really time to bring the people back, bring everybody in one page and create like win-win situations in construction.
Let's talk, listen, you're in New York, you were ground zero over the the shutdown and the roller coaster of the last couple of years. We're coming out of it. Everybody said it was going to be a couple of weeks. Here we are 3 years later, and we're still freaking talking about this, fiasco, in my opinion. But, talk about lessons learned and what you went through over the last couple of years, as you've, come into, with trunk tools and so forth.
Yeah, I think the funniest meme or whatever I saw early on in construction is, and related to the roller coaster, is what really drove digitization in construction. Is it the chief innovation officer, or is it, the newest iPhone, or is it COVID, right? And so we all know that. And it was really amazing to see that all of a sudden, like construction that was so hard to get any tech adoption actually done, shifted from a lot of their meetings to like just Teams or Zoom or whatever they use, right? Like that's a big step for construction. That has not happened before. Like when I worked I worked all over Europe at one point, and it was really hard for me just to like catch the right meetings at the right time. I had 200 flights in 1 year just to make that happen. It's a flight almost every day. And I was like, now, like, a few years later, everybody's on Zoom and on Teams. And I was like, okay, so like there was the first step that like management accepted that there is software that can help them in the day-to-day. And I feel like it's slowly dribbling down to everybody else. What's shocking to me every day is when you think about construction is 10% of GDP, right? About 65% is labor costs. So we're talking a 6.5% GDP. And then we know that approximately 90% of this is actually like deskless workforce, people in the field. So we're talking 5.5-ish% of the US economy that is working on the side without any software. Think about this. This is like tens of millions of people that are doing really a really high demanding job, not just physical, but like building the right thing at the right time in the right place. And we call them deskless workforce for a reason. They don't have a desk, right? They're sitting in a container or on site, and they don't have a software, like nothing. And so it's really time for us, and that's what we're focusing on. We're building tools for the deskless workforce, or in our terms, for the blue collar workers, for the tradespeople out there, that makes their life a little bit easier. because what they like about their job is not playing with the software. What they like about their job is getting shit done and being on site and working with their hands. And so whatever software we build for them, it is text message based, it is super simple, there's no login, there's nothing they have to worry about. It's really just integrating software with what the users really want to use out there.
I ran a couple errands this morning, and I was driving back, and I'm watching this house get built up down the street. Really nice house. Anyway, they just got done framing. They're putting up the roof, and the roofer up there, he's got his tie, so he's not going to fall. But he's standing there, and he's looking through the plans, and I'm like, oh my God, he should just have a tablet up there and he could just go through it, and so much easier than looking, and I watched this thing, and I went to grab my camera and the light turned green because I was going to take a little video of it and say, hey, get that guy a tablet. You make it so much easier. He can look at that stuff and have it slide. And if he has to look at it, he can do it, and he doesn't have to have the plans. And it was, it was the perfect analogy of what you just said. There are construction companies that don't even use smartphones these days.
Yeah.
I mean, I look back, at looking at, I mean, some of the big boys, I mean, they're technologically advanced, but the amount of contractors that are out there, I mean, some of them don't even have websites. I mean, it's just, they might be using slide rules. Who knows?
And they might not need it, right? I think what's interesting, I measured this, like, I think in my PhD, like smartphone adoption on site, and my PhD is a few years old, was about like 40-ish%. We measured it again like 2 years ago with trunk tools. And now 98% of workers out there have smartphones. Might be their personal ones, right? But they do have smartphones. So the real thing, if any chief innovation officer of a company is telling me like, oh, my guys do not have smartphones, I'm like, just not true. You might not buy it to them, but they all have them. Like this is a generation, not even the more grown-up people, like it's really hard to even buy a phone that's not a smartphone anymore, right? So there's no arguments anymore. Like these people use text messages, they use WhatsApp in their personal life, right? Like that, not everybody, but some of them have email, they use Amazon, right? That was also something that like happened during the roller coaster where people just started adopting online shopping. If you do online shopping, you have a credit card, you have an email address, and you kind of know how it works. And if you can do that, you can use software tools like trunk tools on your day-to-day job because we're not that much harder than anything else.
As a digital marketer, I have a bunch of different software that I use, and I have probably 15 different logins or whatever. And now someone developed where they have everything in one stop. I'm getting rid of all my other stuff. Actually, after I get off here, I'm going to start, importing all my stuff and getting my new platform set up. And, it's going to cut out probably 90% of the other plugins or whatever you want to call them that I'm using. And it also is going to, get rid of my forms. It does texting. It does all this stuff. And I can go out and market it to other firms. But and all it is, you think it's overwhelming. I mean, I have a lot of stuff I've got to move over, but it's really, once you get in there, it's not that tough. So you can't be fearful of technology. You just got to go with it and figure out how you're going to do stuff. It really is push button 101. But once you master it, it's going to make your life so much easier. It's like us when we went digital. I don't miss the printer. I don't miss the post office. That's a 5th century outfit that has to be totally overhauled, in my opinion. But I've been dealing with it for 20 years, so I can say that to all you out there. But
yeah,
the line is that, it's amazing what you can do to streamline your process so you can spend your time on other things like improving your business, making more money. And the other thing is, with labor, I talked to so many contractors or engineers this year that were just killing it. They've had like the best couple of years, even during the roller coaster, and they would have taken on more business, but they didn't have PMs, they didn't have superintendents, and they didn't want to bite off more that they could chew. And that's why I'm kind of on this rampage of, hey, if I could plant a couple seeds with a couple of 8th graders or, early high school guys, but, if they're deciding if, because college isn't for everybody. I knew it wasn't for my son, so, and so if we can plant a couple of those seeds and everybody else would do their part, we could actually make maybe not a huge dent, but a nice little dent into that labor shortage to get these people to think about, hey, you should be proud to be a blue collar. It's awesome to work with your hands and to see what you've done, and use technology to make it that much easier, in my opinion. Correct? Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe one thing I would add, right, is like going through what you're going through today, it's like, oh, pulling all the information, making your life easier in the future, that's psychologically does not work for a lot of people. And like we have the data on that, especially for like laborers and tradespeople. There's a lot of the stuff we're dealing with from a psychology perspective is instant gratification. They want things now and today because it's just more how how they've lived their life. There's a reason why they don't want to go to school, right? It's like what I have today is more important for my life than what I have tomorrow. So we design our tools text message based. All they need to do is write a text, which is something that they have done before, and everything else is taken care of. So I think a lot of the software companies that are coming in right now need to understand that you need to build for the actual end user. And our end user are the laborers and the skilled trades people out there. And if I can build a software, and we have, that all it interfaces with those people is a text message, the adoption is just way easier. Because I don't want to go out there on a trade and tell everybody to put in like 4 hours of work to get the thing up and running. That's not going to work. They have better stuff to do, and they're not as excitable as you and me about this, right? And so like, let's just give it simple to them. Don't make their life harder. Make their life easier.
I was, I do a couple classes a week, and I was on this call the other night, and they said that 93% of the people that get a text will answer it. And so, from a marketing perspective, everybody's got a phone pretty much in their hand, these days. I don't care where it is, you're there. But if you get a text, it's so much easier just to look at a text than it is to go, log into your email, depending on how you have your phone set up or whatever. Texting is the best. So if you've got an email, a Gmail, and a cell phone, personal, not a landline at their office or whatever, you're golden, in this day and age, because and then you just have to be kind of creative in how you want to get people to answer your text, but they're going to see it, and it's just so much easier because they get it, and then curiosity killed the cat. I got to say, oh, boom, it's right there. So,
and imagine if your text says like, hey, if you finish this, if you act safely or anything like that, you get more cash.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the deal.
that incentive is awesome. Listen, money makes people do things, even, it all
But me
adds,
too.
yeah, it all adds up at the end and so forth. So, hey, if someone wanted to get in touch with you and talk about Trunk Tools and your incentives that you have with your software and et cetera, how would someone reach out to you about tools?
The easiest is to just go on our website, trunktools.com, and there is like a form for contact, and you can just find us there. We're on LinkedIn, we're everywhere. Trunktools.com.
All right. And hey, listen, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can get me at davidc@ccr-mag.com. Listen, we love content. Send it to me. Listen, this nice lady here in the Big Apple, she got on her because her publicist sent me something, and I looked at it. I look at everything. I get a ton of stuff, but here I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want to have this person on. So that's how you get on. So if you don't send, it's like, I know you don't like me saying this. It's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. You don't send me something, you won't get it, on the show or in the magazine. And listen, we look at everything. Personnel announcements, charity, new products. I can go down the list. Very tough to get in the magazine, but we have plenty of platforms out there that we post stuff and do all this stuff. And that's and don't let me be the judge. I'll judge your what you sent me and where it can go. And I will come back. I will personally answer you. It might take me a couple of days. My TAT turnaround time is probably about 24 to 72 hours, but I'll come back to you. And I check my junk folder all the time, all day long. If you send me something that's really cool, but we try to get as much stuff up there, on the web as possible, because we're a news outlet. We're a conduit of news, and trying to get as much new ideas and innovations that can help everybody streamline their processes, and also help you build your brands that are out there, et cetera. So that's but. If, as we close out this episode, if there was one positive thought or phrase that you would want to leave with our listeners out there as we go into the second half of 2023, Q3 and Q4, as we and then close out the year and go into 2024, what would it be?
Be proud to be a tradesperson.
Awesome. Yeah. Work with your hands. I'm right there. You know, you and I have both lived it. Some people.
Yes, and like,
I'm there. You know, I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with wearing a hard hat. There's nothing wrong with getting, working with your hands. And listen, like I said, I'm proud to build a magazine. I was proud when I was knocking down asbestos or laying railroad tracks or whatever it might have been way back when. And now my cousins, fourth or fifth generations, they're still running the company. So and if you have kids out there and they don't know what they want to do, there's two things I would tell them. Listen, if they don't want to go into trade school, go into the military. You'll have a roof over your head. You'll learn a trade. You put your time in, you'll get 3 square meals a day, and then you can do your time and get out. And then you're going to, be able to write your ticket to wherever you want to go. But, if your son or daughter out there and, doesn't want to, go to college or what have you, there's umpteen million trades out there that we need people. So, don't, that whole blue collar thing, you got to get rid of it, because there's a lot of blue collar guys that never went to college, didn't get a diploma, that are just freaking making a ton of money. And
having a good life. It's not just about the money. Like, they can be proud of their jobs. Like, sometimes when they're flying with a plane in a city where I've built the high rise and I see it, and you're like, I've built this. You can make a real change in the world, and it's awesome. And I love the military point. Like, 25% of our employees are veterans. Like, we love that. There's so much commonality between veterans and construction. And like, yes, if you want a job, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I come from a military family. My grandfather was underneath Patton in World War II, and he was a combat engineer, and he rebuilt all of the bridges in Europe after, during afterwards, to rebuild Europe. And so I've got pictures of, the old 8mm films of, him out, and it was an amazing thing. And they had the construction company already going during that whole time period. And what was amazing is after the war, we got all these tanks and Jeeps, and they cut them all up in the metal. And we were into sustainability before even sustainability was even a word, So, another man's junk is another man's gold. That's just the way it went. So, well, this has been awesome. I love talking to ladies that are in construction, that grew up, within their family, that were doing things like that, because there's nothing like having your dad or your mom take you under your wing, and you know exactly kind of what's going on. But the incentive program with Trunk Tools, that is a really awesome idea. And I'm so glad that I have you. So all you out there, if you're a contractor or a sub or what have you, and you're watching this, and you're working for a firm, or you're gonna, doing a project, and this is just a nice incentive for your own team that you're bringing in there. How cool would it be to say, hey, we just got picked to work on this job, and guess what? They give out incentives with these cards and stuff. So if we get the thing done a day early, we put a little extra cash in money. Doesn't that sound cool? I mean, I'd be want to be on work early, better early than late, in construction. And what a way as an incentive to get things done, because if you're a retailer, you've already printed your circulars, your opening of your new store, and then they back it up through the construction process. So if you miss your deadline because your laborers are not incentivized, oh my God, that's like the worst thing that can happen. So here's a nice way that you can act. It's like an insurance policy, in my opinion, that you can incentivize your labor. Hey, we got to get this done, because guess what? There's another job, it's probably going to come right down the pipeline. You get done with this one, you make a little coin, and then you move on to the next one. So thank you for creating the app and the software and all that. And your education actually is paid off, in my opinion. So any final last thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, thanks a lot for having me. This is awesome. And yeah, thanks for advocating for the trades. I love that.
Hey, listen, I've got an event coming up September 28th in the city. It's called Commercial Construction Renovations, Facilities Construction. We've got a nice little event in the city. It's at the Penthouse I think it's on 46th or 48th Street between 7th and 8th. But I'll make sure that you get an invite. And by all means, we'd love to have you. And for all you out there, listen, it's the weekend. Enjoy it. Like I said, two things. you're out there on a construction site, make sure you're staying safe. We want you to go home, see your kids, and be able to get up and do it all again the following day. And it's hot out there. I don't care if it's even cold. You got to drink liquid to stay hydrated. I'm a lacrosse guy. It's the dead of summer, the dog days of summer. I mean, I'm drinking water all day because I know I got games. You know, I got to play tomorrow, and you got to stay hydrated. Getting headaches and with hydration, dehydration, it's the worst. So be safe. Drink lots of liquid. So with that said, Sarah, say goodbye from the Big Apple in New York City.
And, fine. Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say goodbye from Sugar Hill, just below the Beaufort Dam at Lake Lanier, probably about 25, 30 miles out of downtown. And with that said, we will see you all next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. And Sarah, I look forward to meeting you in person when I come up to the city. All right.
Same. Thanks, David.
All right. Ciao, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.